Anyway, so let's let's talk about the reflecting pool in Washington, D.C. for a minute. Because if anybody out there has any kind of notion that there was some sort of sabotage, let me disabuse you of that idea. There was no sabotage. The reflecting pool originally had algae because they have a hell of a time in a swamp, which is what Washington, D.C. is, right? Washington, D.C. was built on top of a swamp. What normally happens with something like this, if the president wants to fix the reflecting pool so that it looks nice, I'm all about that. That's fine. But what you do is you put out a thing and you say, 5 or 6 companies, and you say, hey, put a bid in on fixing this. And what they'll do is they'll come in and they'll look and they'll see what's wrong and they'll give you a quote on how much it's going to cost to fix it. But he was in a hurry because he wanted it done by the UFC fight, which, for the record, I'll go through this another time, but do I have a really big issue with it? Not so much. I mean, I don't like UFC, so I didn't watch it, but, it's his birthday. Okay. I'm okay with it. That's fine. Do your thing. I mean, I don't want to dare all the time, obviously, but, it was his birthday. He was 80. It was a big birthday. I just, of all the egregious things that Donald Trump has done, that's just not the one I'm going to choose to get my panties in a wad about. Anyway, so reflecting pool, right. Don't let me get off on a tangent. So, he wanted it done by 2/50, which is July the 4th, obviously, or his birthday in June. And so he offered the contract to one of his pool guys from wherever, Mar-a-Lago or wherever. First of all, you're not supposed to do that, because you need to know what's wrong with it so they can actually fix it, so you know how much money to give them, which is supposed to be allotted by Congress, right? We have checks and balances in this country. We're supposed to use them. But he didn't do that. He just gave a $1.4 million of your money to some guy nobody knows to do the reflecting. Okay, fine. Whatever. You want to have this person do it? Fine, whatever. Okay. 1.4 million. That seems like, okay, they're going to repaint it, they're going to resurface it. Okay, it's a big pool, let's do that. Alright. So the guy came in and they decided they were going to paint this pool American flag blue. Okay, whatever. Again, it's one of those things where, okay, you want to paint the bottom of the pool American flag blue so the whole pool looks blue. Okay, whatever, do your thing. That's fine. But then, they started working on it, and the guy that he brought in to do this and did not get other quotes or anything about how much this was going to cost, and yeah, this is going to cost more than I thought. Like, not just a little bit more, but $14 million more. Well, $12.5 million more. Because it cost a total of $14 million to paint the bottom of this pool, put that, I think they covered it in that leak stop white stuff that you put in the bottom of your pool, and then they refilled it, and a day and a half later, you know what happened? It turned green because it had algae growing in it again. So the saga of the reflecting pool in Washington has got to be like the quintessential, exactly what you would think this entire clusterfuck of a presidency has been about. It's a comedy of errors. So the guy comes back. So 2 days, we have a nice, pretty blue reflecting pool for a day and a half, I think. I don't even think it was that long. It was like 18 hours or something. And then they come back and all this algae is growing. Okay. It's not sabotage. Nobody dumped algae in the pool. Washington, D.C. is built on a swamp. It's also 90 degrees and humid. Do you know what grows when it's 90 degrees, humid, and in a swamp? Algae grows. And when you don't have things in the pool that prevent that, right? Algae's going to grow. Algae is very resilient. It's going to grow. It might grow regardless. Anyway, so it took like 18 to 20 hours in the whole entire pool. Once it cooled off, once it heated, once it got hotter underneath the sun and the algae started to grow again, now it's green. And there's little things of dead algae hanging around the bottom and on the top. It's arguably worse than it was before. And it's still leaking, and that because it's still leaking, the filtration system still doesn't work, which is what you are going to have if you want an algae-free pool. But being that these people are not real bright, I guess, they came, and the guy that was doing the pool, I guess, decided that dumping a buttload of hydrogen peroxide into the pool would kill off the algae and make it clear again. And then the next day, so, understand this is happening in like 48 hours after they finished $14 million of this pool. They dump all this. Okay, so the problem with hydrogen peroxide is that it's a paint stripper. So now it's eating away at the paint that they just put on the bottom of the pool. So you've got big chunks of pool floating to the top of paint, big chunks of blue paint floating to the top. So now, not only is it green, but it has big fat chunks of paint floating through it that are coming off the bottom because you put paint stripper in there to kill the algae. A comedy of errors, yes. Anyway, but that's what's happening with a reflecting pool. It is not sabotage. Everything is completely 100% explainable by science. It's just algae is what happens when you live in a swamp and and heat and moisture create algae. If there's water and there's heat and there's moisture, there's going to be algae there. That's why other presidents have had the same fucking issue with this pool. Of course Donald Trump's going to feel like, because he's him, that he can fix everything, but yeah, I'm pretty sure Barack Obama tried to clean that pool and fix it. Sorry, man, it sucks to be you. Anyway, so Saga, a little bit lighthearted today. Saga of the reflecting pool. Y'all have a wonderful day. I am almost turning. I am almost at work. So y'all have a wonderful day, and I will see you tomorrow, I hope.